Chair Okrepke,
Here.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
No longer Vice Mayor, but I am here.
Oh, all right then, good to know. And then Councilmember Fleming. All right, let the record reflect that all committee members are present.
All right, thank you very much. We have no remote participation today. Any modifications to the agenda needed? Seeing none, we will move on. Any announcements?
Chair, we have no announcements today.
Excellent. Then we will go to item 5.1, approval of minutes. Any comments on the minutes? Okay. Councilmember Fleming will abstain.
And I'll have to do the same. I don't think I was here for that one.
You were here for that one. Okay. Yes. All right. So she will not abstain. Councilmember Alvarez will, because he was absent. We'll go to public comment on the minutes. Seeing no one, we will close public comment, come back, and we will approve those as submitted with Councilmember Alvarez abstaining. We will go to item 6, public comment on non-agenda items. If there is anybody here from the public that would like to comment on anything not on the agenda within the purview of the Economic Development Subcommittee, now is your chance. Nobody's moving, so we will close public comment. There are no matters held in committee, so we will go to item 8.1, the Economic Insights with Dr. Robert Eiler from Sonoma State University.
That's right. Thank you, Chair and subcommittee members. Scott Adair, Chief Economic Development Officer for the City of Santa Rosa. Pleased today to introduce our presenter, Dr. Robert Eiler, Professor of Economics from Sonoma State University. Dr. Eiler will be joining us remotely via Zoom today. Just to preface this conversation, as part of the Economic Development Strategic Plan, which has been adopted by City Council, city staff and the Economic Development Division have been tasked with collecting, identifying, and measuring certain key performance indicators as it concerns the state of and the progression of our local economy. We have been doing that and memorializing that in our quarterly report, which we will have another iteration of that report available for you today. But sometimes it does help to bring in an outside perspective to look at the numbers. And so what our team has done is contracted for services with Dr. Robert Eiler. Dr. Robert Eiler, under his contract for services with the city, will be providing the following services. Dr. Eiler will provide 4 written economic insights per year, which will be attached to and relevant to the findings in the quarterly report. Dr. Eiler will be providing 2 biannual presentations to the Economic Development Subcommittee. Dr. Eiler will be providing an annual State of the Santa Rosa Economy report to the entire City Council, and Dr. Eiler will be providing staff with ongoing monthly support as we continue to review, assess, analyze current and ongoing economic indicators and what that means for our economy. So today, our plan is to have Dr. Eiler report to you. Should be a relatively brief presentation, and then after that report, we'll go right into our second quarterly report for discussion. Thank you.
Scott, thank you for that. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, Dr. Eiler.
Awesome, thank you so much. Well, folks, thank you so much for having me and for allowing me to do this work for the city. I'm gonna start with a look at what's going on in the macroeconomy. So the recent forecast for the United States economy is actually relatively good and has been rising, part of which is a function of what's been happening with tariffs and their slow descension from where we were, let's say in April, when the initial surge in tariffs came out. And the current state of the forecast is that we're likely to see growth through next year, and then things are going to flatten out a little bit in the later part of the decade. But why that's important for Santa Rosa is it acts as context. We do not expect a macroeconomic recession, at least the fleet of economists that are out there. I tend to use what comes out of the Philadelphia Federal Reserve as my forecast tool, at least the level set where the macroeconomy is going. They're predicting—
Dr. Eiler,
yes.
Can we just
Yes.
pause for a second? We're having trouble getting the presentation up to keep up with you. So
I'm sorry.
No, you're doing great. We're just trying to have technical difficulties.
No worries. Sorry about that. I just got right into it and figured it would just appear. That's on me.
It's not attached. Perfect. Thank you. We got it.
Here we go.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Of course. So who's ever in control, please just click through, let's say, three more slides. Or three more slides, sorry, 3 more clicks, and that'll get the highlighted areas I want to speak about very quickly, and then we'll move on. So you can see those shaded areas. Those are the current forecasts out of the Philadelphia Federal Reserve's interview. Oh, you can go back one slide, sorry. Their interview of 40 forecasters in the United States. And in buckets, we have real GDP growth in its forecast as of the data we knew at the end of Q3 2025 in that shaded area that says new. You can see the previous quarter's data to its left, so you can see they're a little bit more optimistic for the end of this year and for 2026 than they were 1 quarter ago. You can see that little bit of growth in both those cases, and then pretty much the same forecast for 2027 and 2028. Part of that optimism is because the unemployment rate looks like it's not going to increase very much over the next few years. And there's some weirdness about that. I'll speak about this when we look at Santa Rosa's unemployment rate, or at least its labor force dynamics briefly in just a second. But generally speaking, we still have relatively warm but cooling labor markets where unemployment looks like it's going to creep up a little bit in the United States. And then core PC inflation has become kind of an important data point when the Federal Reserve makes its decision making around whether it's able to control inflation or not. They're using those data, and that forecast is for a slow reduction in inflation that they're watching at the Federal Reserve when they make interest rate decisions over the next couple of years. So when you add all this up, there is no recession in the forecast. There's about a 15% chance as of the data we know at the end of Q3 2025, looking forward to 2026, and that is lower than it was last quarter. Now, that does not mean that there are no headwinds in the macroeconomy, and when I wrap up in about 5 minutes, we'll talk more about that. Next slide, please. So and you can click through a few more times. These data are about Santa Rosa's labor force. So that blue line are the number of people in Santa Rosa that are either looking for work, have a job, or work for themselves. The next click is going to show you the chunk of that blue line that is working for themselves or working for somebody else. And these data are monthly, seasonally adjusted from January 2016 to August 2025. So you can see the slow fall in those data because of the fires. I'll go ahead and go back one. There you go. Thank you so much. You can see where the fires happened in late 2017, the slow fall after that because we had some residents out-migrate as a result of what took place with the Tubbs fire in 2017, and then the real sharp cut in the pandemic and then climbing back up. So this is not anomalous to Santa Rosa, Sonoma County, the North Bay, or California in some ways. Santa Rosa is sort of part of the sort of suburban on the borderline of more rural places in California where the blue line and the orange line have not yet quite got back to their pre-pandemic levels, but have been slowly climbing up. And you can see that both those lines are rising. The trick, though, is the space between them is the unemployment, or those unemployed. And then I show you some of the recent unemployment rates there on the far right-hand side. So Santa Rosa and Sonoma County pretty much run hand in hand because of Santa Rosa's size, and we're running about 1% lower than California. But we're watching closely as the labor force creeps up and we get more people who are now reemerging looking for jobs. How many more jobs or how many more of those residents are actually hired? And remember, these data are about the residents of Santa Rosa, not who works at a Santa Rosa-based employer. Next slide, please. So for taxable sales, and one of the things that Scott had alluded to is we're going to look at some indicators, and we're also going to look at some comparisons across California. So one discipline that I do with other cities and counties is I try to think about, how are we comparing locally to other places? And you can see here that Santa Rosa's taxable sales over the latest data we have, which is basically the last fiscal year and then the percentage change from the previous fiscal year, fell about 2.8%, and this is in total taxable sales. Ontario is kind of an outlier because they had some logistics facilities build up over that fiscal year and saw a bit of a surge, at least in the taxable sales that are happening, not necessarily what the municipality is gaining access to in sales tax revenue, but the amount of demand for taxable sales in those areas as measured by California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. But most places in California actually saw a decline unless they had some anomalous change in their business mix. So the reason I'm showing this is a good discipline to think about the way in which residents and visitors to a local area are buying goods and how they're comparing to other places. So whether or not your municipality stands out a little bit. And generally speaking, Santa Rosa, while it has fallen, is more of a flattening maybe because of prices falling down and a little bit of reduction in demand after the pandemic surge its shadow is finally passing. Next slide, please. Now, I apologize, in the title of the next two slides, I was going to do Santa Rosa, Marin, Napa, and I just had Napa in there, so apologize. This is still a focus on Santa Rosa, Sonoma County, and then our North Bay region. This is the housing market forecast through October 25's data that we have about the housing market. You can see I isolated kind of our North Bay set in California on the left-hand side, and then we have our comparison cities and counties on the right-hand side. So for the most part, the data for the North Bay, and you can see Santa Rosa's forecast is about 1.5% down over the next year, and prices in the North Bay have generally flattened down and started to slide a little bit versus other parts of California. That's after a pretty good surge in terms of housing prices from 2020 forward. But you can see this other sprinkle of comparison areas still show some positive energy in terms of housing markets. And some of that's because a lot of these places are in the Los Angeles basin, and there's still this slow out-migration and sort of sifting in housing markets where the drumbeat of demand is still outpacing supply. So we're watching that close. In places like Ventura County, Orange County, Santa Barbara County, and San Diego County, and San Bernardino, for that matter, have really seen amazing housing markets over the last 5, almost 6 years now, where the North Bay, Sonoma, Marin, and Napa is the core of that. I've actually seen a good pop and then now some flattening versus other parts of California. So we're watching this in terms of the evolution of housing markets in Santa Rosa. Next slide, please. Again, apologies for the titling. I again was going to put Santa Rosa and then Napa and Sonoma counties on top. I didn't complete that. It'll be done next time. The point is, for the next little bit here, we're going to start in Santa Rosa. Just the one click, please. This is, believe it or not, the 6-month moving average of occupancy rates according to CoStar. They've now purchased Smith Travel Research, which is kind of the core data point for occupancy rates in local hotels. You can see that the seasonality is very tough to sort of wind out, even with using a little bit of statistical techniques. But the bottom line is that we saw the dip, and then we've seen this sort of trend pop right after the pandemic. These data are from July 2020 forward. And then you can see after that, we flattened out a little bit the last couple of years, and we were creeping up a little this year, still showing a decent strength, but we got to watch and see where we go from here. This is a good indicator of TOT tax revenue, but also just general travel demand. Now, as we go through these comparisons, Sonoma County overall very much follows the same trend as Santa Rosa. Napa County, somewhat similar, which should be the next click. You can see that there. Napa went way further down than Santa Rosa and Sonoma County, but has basically climbed back up. And you can see on the far right-hand side, Napa continues to truck along with this really good strength. It's been amazing to see what's going on in Napa County. But the point is that these places all seem to follow each other in terms of the seasonality and in terms of the trend. And then the next one's San Francisco. San Francisco has become a lot more competitive over the last 18, 24 months. And a lot of that's because they've been reducing prices and trying to draw in through package deals, more business conferences, and a lot more business travel that had left with strength after the pandemic started. So we're going to be monitoring these in terms of watching regional trends and to make sure that Santa Rosa's travel demand is still there, and then think about the economic development aspects of that. Next slide, please. So to wrap up, I want to look at a quick jobs forecast. There are some data out there from the private and public sector on Santa Rosa and Sonoma County's jobs forecast. This is the overall forecast. Over the next 6 months, we're going to break this down as new data start to arrive for Santa Rosa, Sonoma County, the North Bay, and California overall. But this is the Santa Rosa forecast looking from 2025 to 2030 if you blend Lightcast and the state data that comes out of California EDD together into what I kind of do a little bit of magic on, say this looks like it's wrong on this side, and this looks like right on this side, and what do we compare to? Overall jobs growth for Santa Rosa looks like it's gonna be about 5,000 more workers toward the end of the decade. However, and that's kind of adding up all those columns and thinking about it in full. You can see the far left-hand side, it's healthcare jobs that are really driving that. If you look at the Sonoma County forecast, which is the next click, you're really gonna see that pop in healthcare. So all the other industries besides the 5 that are listed there are in that far right-hand column, and it's healthcare that's going to drive it. Now, why that's important, let's go to the next slide. If you think about this coming year and the things to think about from an economic development standpoint, we want to watch what's going on with taxable sales, and will the holiday season tell us where consumers are and their confidence of the coming year economically? We're going to be watching business entry and exit, so go ahead and do the next click or two. Thank you. And to see where macroeconomic pressures are starting to show their face, especially on smaller businesses. So that if you want to deploy economic development assets, right now, our smaller businesses that are locally owned are more likely to have pressure on them because the imposition of tariffs is a regressive tax specifically on smaller businesses and lower to middle income households. We want to watch and see how that's going. And then we want to also think about healthcare's dominance in terms of that forecast looking forward. That's a good thing and can also be a little bit of a curse, but we want to watch those two in tandem. And then the next click is going to talk about, real quickly, national and state level issues. California is actually in light stagflation episode here. Prices have crept up a little bit, unemployment's crept up a little bit, just a little bit. But if you think about the national picture and its slowdown, some of that is being driven by California sort of trying to find its way toward the end of the decade after the pandemic shock. And then we'll just click through these 4 key items for Santa Rosa, in my opinion. We're going to be watching for housing market pressure. At the end of the day, housing is a big deal from an economic development standpoint. It's really a determination about where our workers live and how many workers are available and what is their cost of living. The retail pressures, especially like I just said, on smaller businesses, especially those locally owned, we want to watch that because of that regressive tax. When we think about the diversification of the Santa Rosa economy, what direction should we go next? And your team is a great team, and they're going to be thinking about this. There's a lot of places who are looking at tariffs and saying, well, are there actually some positives here in terms of the repatriation or the expansion of manufacturing? That's possible. And can Santa Rosa find itself in a sort of hub position in terms of that model? We will see. And then there have been a lot of concerns about the wine industry and whether or not that is stopping the flow of tourism and what that means for jobs, especially in a place that is connected to the agricultural aspects of the wine industry and not just the bottling and then ultimately the sort of retail / tourism aspects of it. We're going to see some of that play out over the next few years in terms of the wine industry figuring itself out after a wild 4 years and what it really means toward the end of the decade with respect to agricultural land use, what that means generally for agriculture in Sonoma County, and how Santa Rosa plays a role in that as visitor demand shifts and becomes a little bit more competitive. So folks, with that, if we have time for questions, I'll take them. Thank you so much for letting me do this work.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eiler. We'll come to the dais for questions. Councilmember Fleming, do you have any? Councilmember Alvarez?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. In regards to the statement of Ontario having a 13.7% increase due to non-taxable, but the brand of taxable items, is that also the case for Lancaster?
Yes.
And what's their strength in economy? Is it agricultural, technology, or?
It's more about those places being logistics hubs and seeing an expansion of that part of taxable sales. So, and they've seen a little bit more in the case of Lancaster, they've had a little bit more on the advanced manufacturing side that has come in, and they've become a little bit more of a hub in terms of manufacturing and distribution where the taxable sale happens there. And in Ontario, and this is why I wanted to give the caveat, this is not necessarily reflective of what sales tax revenue for those municipalities would be left in their wake, but the number of taxable sales that are happening right on site. So for Ontario, the expansion of their airport and having more logistics around the airport has helped boost some of those taxable sales as well.
Thank you for that elaboration. And in regards to the housing market, you stated that we're at 1.4, and the north compared to Southern California, we're seeing a drop in our housing market. Now, is there also a correlation with the percentage of inventory numbers that can actually kind of explain why we're seeing that shift? Are they also building as strong as we are here in Northern California?
Yeah, they are building a little faster. The base price is also a little lower. in some of those counties. Not that far in terms of places like San Diego County or Orange County, but in San Bernardino County and in Ventura County, they're a little lower, not by much. But a lot of it is that they're also, population-wise, they're having younger people move to those areas. So demand has crept up, where in the North Bay, our demography is still leaning more toward an older crowd where there are fewer people, and they're thinking about whether or not the housing inventory that's available is worth the demand. So we've got a little bit more inventory going on market here compared to demand. Not by much, and it's when you see a forecast that's somewhere between plus or minus 3% around zero, that is basically in the margin of error. So it's more or less a flat forecast. But the housing market here, if you talk to realtors, it is not as strong as it was 2 years ago. In Southern California, especially in those places I called out, the strength is still there. The demand, especially with regional rents, is still pushing people toward available housing when it shows up, especially when it's a new build. And interest rates falling is giving a little bit more movement there than, let's say, here for now.
And to follow up on that question, is there a great difference, a gap in the age between the northern and southern California market? Because you stated that there's definitely a younger crowd south.
Yes. So at least in the latest census data, Sonoma County, Santa Rosa, or let's say the median age is in the low 40s. And in Southern California, generally, it's in the mid 30s. So 5 or 6 years difference in terms of the middle of the distribution in terms of who lives there. And if you look at Marin County, it's 48 years old at the middle of the distribution. So it's about another 5 years older than Santa Rosa and Sonoma County. So we are an older region here by, 8 to 10 years, generally speaking.
Thank you for those responses, sir, and the elaboration on them.
Of course.
All right, Dr. Ayala, I have a couple questions to dovetail off of Councilmember Alvarez's housing markets. That 1.4% reduction, is that something that we should be concerned about, or would that be more aptly categorized as a market correction?
It's basically a flat market. So I would be cautiously pessimistic about it, not nervous or panicky. And especially because Santa Rosa and Sonoma County as housing markets are not outliers negatively among the North Bay or really around the state more generally. So it's not that Santa Rosa is standing out from the crowd. And those numbers are such a small change, it's not that big of a deal, and could easily be wiped away through a faster descent of interest rates and a little bit more construction that then would be immediately demanded. That can easily boost that up. The key is the recognition that we may have peaked in the current cycle for now. The trick is how we go from here toward the end of the decade. And one of the housing market anomalies that we had in this cycle that we have not had really before are the number of people who took the lessons from the global financial crisis, and if they were in a home, they refinanced when interest rates were low. So the so-called lock-in effect, or the number of people who have very low mortgage rates that, short of a major economic shock, do not necessarily have an incentive to move, is much higher than it was right before the global financial crisis and right before the pandemic. So that should keep inventories from surging, short of like I just said, a major economic issue where a lot of people start losing their jobs. So the one thing to watch for is not so much that housing forecast, but what continues to happen in our labor markets as an indicator of where housing inventories are likely to go, putting more downward pressure on prices. If we can avoid a major economic correction, we should be able to at least have pretty decent support for current housing prices.
All right, thank you. And then a follow-up to the taxable sales. When you're looking at Ontario and Lancaster, you said logistics hubs, taxable transactions going on at those points. If you're a layman who has no general understanding of these kinds of tax laws or economic impacts, how would you describe the difference between what's going on there versus what's going on in Santa Rosa?
So think of it this way, that if you have a new car dealership open up in a place that has a relatively small number of transactions in large ticket, like large dollar items. That will give you a boost in what is happening locally in terms of taxable sales. But if people are buying those cars from outside your area, the other municipalities are going to get those tax revenues. So one of the unfortunate anomalies of looking strictly at taxable sales is you don't know where the revenues lie. You just know that the transaction took place there. So if you open up a hub that has the taxable sales recorded in that warehouse, that's great in terms of the economic activity in that place, but it's not necessarily until you go one layer further down reflective of what the municipality generates from those sales, because it could be that the transaction took place there, but the actual sales tax revenue happens where the person lives who bought the good or service. I'm sorry, or bought the good. So I only bring that up because I know Ontario was a standout, and we want to start the discipline of those comparison areas. And when I saw those data, I was like, oh God, okay, so how are we I needed to go and make sure about being able to explain the anomaly. But the best way of thinking about it is that when you see the taxable sales data in the kind of their raw form, it's not telling you where the sales tax revenue land. And so for places that have that are kind of crossroad hub areas where transactions take place, think car sales is a classic example. If you buy a car in Santa Rosa, but you live in Petaluma is where the sales tax revenue will be recorded, because that's where you're going to license the car rather than in Santa Rosa. So the data will say Santa Rosa had the taxable sale, but Petaluma will actually get the sales tax revenue.
Okay. So using Ontario as an example, if you live in San Bernardino, sit in your home in San Bernardino, purchase a computer in San Bernardino, have it delivered to San Bernardino, but it leaves a warehouse in Ontario, the tax is collected and maintained by Ontario. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. Yes.
All right, thank you. And then my last question is, looking at the labor force and jobs forecast, the boogeyman du jour is AI. Is there any, has that been factored into these, or is that just merely conceptual at this point as to how that will affect jobs and unemployment?
That's a great question. There are sort of two schools of thought. One is that we're going to have some drumbeat of legislation that's going to start slowing down the pace at which things like agentic AI will be able to replace a job. I'm not really sure how that legislation would look with respect to, you can think of it as a business decision over how they hire or they don't hire and they employ technology. But you're hearing some of those rumblings around Congress. And the second, and this is what I tell people all the time, is that if I'm the owner of AI intellectual property, I want adoption of that technology. So the trick is how fast can it be adopted and potentially displace workers in such a way that I don't lose market, because there's a lot more people who now can't find jobs or can't find them quickly once they're displaced. And it changes the demand for the good or service that is the bread and butter of how I get paid from my client. So we know there's going to be some replacement. It's splattered throughout economic history in terms of new technologies replacing labor. The trick is this looks a lot more scary because it's becoming a lot more humanoid. So there are some pieces of research that are coming out and trying to pinpoint which jobs are more likely to be displaced faster than other ones. But some of the research is tricky in terms of some of it originally was what you can think of as administrative assistants, kind of lower to middle wage jobs that have relatively repetitive tasks, and so-called agent can be employed to do all those tasks. And now we're moving closer and closer to hearing about things like manufacturing, construction, a little sprinkle in agriculture, a little sprinkle in healthcare, where people are starting to get out there a little bit in terms of how AI, robotics, and the nature of how especially our younger generation are willing to interact with a machine rather than, let's say, a person, might lead to a little faster adoption in industries we didn't think of before. So it is a boogeyman to a certain extent, because we should expect it not to completely take over the world as if it's, another Terminator movie. But at the same time, we need to be cognizant of the nature of economics and the way in which that the owner of the technology is going to want it adopted, and where the profits are in those models.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. All right, we will go to public comment on this item. Does anybody have public comment? Seeing nobody move again, we will close public comment, come back for final comments here. Councilman, I'll just say this is great. Thank you so much. I'm glad that we've contracted with Dr. Eiler for this kind of analysis. One thing I would say going forward is these studies that are ever evolving about artificial intelligence, I would like to kind of follow those to hopefully be able to build in a buffer or a AI-proof economic plan when it comes to jobs and industries. Sort of get ahead of the curve if at all possible. You know, as Dr. Eiler said, there's everything from administrative assistance to agriculture. So it's a wide swath of possibilities, but as it does evolve, I would like to be paying attention to it as a city going forward. Go ahead.
Thank you. The report was really useful. I'm glad that we have this contract and that we are going to be getting regular reports from Dr. Eiler. I think it would be helpful. I did hear one little recommendation in there around the potential capture of, what do we call it, repatriation of what is it, production or manufacturing. So I think that going forward, it would be helpful to have, recommendations. It's great to have a report, but we could also use your thoughts on how we should move forward with said report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then, if I recall correctly, is it intended for this to go to full council at some point?
Chair, the contracted services with Dr. Eiler does include an annual report to the full city council. Staff has been working with Dr. Eiler on putting together the scope for that and timing. It will be somewhat of a recap of the biannual reports, which will be made to the subcommittee, and also a recap of the analysis that he's providing for the ongoing quarterly economic development report. Part of the idea is that this would come before the full council well enough in advance of council having to make budgetary decisions for that year, so that council has a good understanding, at least if not from the subcommittee and from Dr. Eiler's report out, on the direction that the economy is going in and how that might impact or alter any budgetary decisions that council might make.
All right, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you, Dr. Eiler, for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. All right, we will close out that item, move to number 9, partner reports. Do we have any partner reports?
We have no partner reports today, Chair.
All right, then we will move on to item 10.1, the quarterly report.
So as was summarized earlier today, staff is continuing to memorialize and record ongoing key performance indicators and other econometrics related to Santa Rosa's economy in the quarterly economic development report. This quarterly report is available online. Today you will be receiving a draft copy of the second iteration of this report. The completion of this report and making it available to the public is part of the Economic Development Strategic Plan, which was approved and adopted by the full City Council. Dr. Eiler's analysis moving forward will include commentary and remarks, which will be included in the report. Staff will continue to record and document some of the different key performing indicators that we previously discussed with this committee when we put the list together of all the metrics that the committee wanted to see in the report out. So for this draft, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our Economic Development Program Analyst, Rachel Beer, to walk us through major differences in this iteration of the report from the last quarterly report. Rachel.
Great, thank you, Scott. Good morning, all. As Scott mentioned, this is our second quarterly report of the year, so we brought our first quarterly report back in August. So this draft report for December encompasses data from August through November 2025. So I worked closely with Dr. Eiler in incorporating updates to the data, as well as you just heard some of those updates, and there's both in macroeconomic overview for Santa Rosa and a local recap and things to watch sections of this report. So he did an interpretation and analysis of the data, which was not incorporated in our August report. So that is new for this December report. We also incorporated the Target Industries report that was brought to this subcommittee back in October, so that's another addition this quarter. We also have new arts, culture, and special events updates. So every quarter, we're looking to bring new additions to the quarterly report, update it, take all of your recommendations back. And today, or this morning, our recommended action is that this draft report is approved for publication online.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No questions from me. We'll go to public comment. No public comment. We will close that. Come back. Any comments of any kind? I think we can, if it is okay with my colleagues, I think we can approve this for publication.
Thank you.
All right. Great. Thank you very much. All right. We will move on to item 11, department reports.
Thank you, Chair. Under this item, we have 3 department reports that will be coming before you today. The first will be a report out on our current progress on the Economic Development Implementation Plan. For context, the Economic Development Implementation Plan is a 40-page document which accompanies the Economic Development Strategic Plan. The implementation plan lays out strategies, specific action items, deliverables, goals, and outcomes for meeting the objectives which are laid out in the strategic plan. In the past, we've shared with you progress on the implementation plan, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over again to Economic Development Program Analyst Rachel Beer to briefly review the progress which has been made since the last report out on this item. Rachel?
Great, thank you, Scott, and good morning again. As I brought the last 2 quarters forward, this is our progress for our implementation plan. So just as a reminder, the first time we came forward to the subcommittee was in April. That shows here on the graphs the first bar and the first line. The second time we came forward was in August with updates, and that's the second bars that you'll see here as well as the lines. And then now in December, we'll show the progress forward. The third bar as well as the third lines. The implementation plan is divided into 4 categories and then further divided into actions that you'll see here on the graphs. I'll briefly go through each of the categories, our highlights from August, our progress from August to December, and then at the very end we can take any questions. I also will do an annual recap. I've been here now since January in my role, and so I can do a full recap of what we've, the progress that our team has done overall for the implementation plan. So I'll just run through these updates now. I'm happy to take questions at the end. For business growth and retention, as you'll see here, our one-stop shop, we have ongoing meetings with Cyril Creative. They're our contractor for this project, for the virtual one-stop shop, excuse me. The website content is currently being developed, and our branding and logo is completed for this project. For establishing site visits and open communication with businesses, our team is working with the county's Economic Development Collaborative on establishing a schedule to visit businesses and shopping centers door to door. So this is a new update for that item. On creating a comprehensive outreach plan, we brought the Target Industries report to the subcommittee at the last meeting for approval, as I previously mentioned. And creating a streamlined re-tenanting program, our team hosted a broker forum in July and held that conversation around our vacant buildings and lots program. That's an update on business growth and retention. On the next slide here, these are our detailed actions as we bring forward for each of these categories. Our next is entrepreneurship and small business. For strengthening support through incubator organizations, our team is working with the Small Business Development Center on a variety of programs, detailed programs. For identifying and promoting funding sources for small businesses, these resources we're working on incorporating into the virtual one-stop shop website, an online platform. For partnering and connecting students for training opportunities, we hired an arts intern, so we now have an established intern program for our department, and that program's in place for future interns. We can move forward to the next category here. For economic vibrancy and resiliency, The downtown housing infill study was brought to this subcommittee in October for our closeout report. For developing sports and entertainment as an economic driver, the market opportunity report was completed for USL. Our public art strategic plan came to a close. Our team is working on a comprehensive report to encompass all of the metrics and information to report back on that strategic plan. For supporting community events and activities, we hired a full-time arts and events specialist who will be joining our team in January. We're excited about that update as well. We can move forward to the last category here for community investment. Our annual survey was distributed from July through August 15th, so I provided an update on that, but we hadn't closed out that survey in the last update. For advancing childcare support systems, our team has met with childcare organizations locally and partnered to identify the needs and what the community are, or needs from the community, excuse me. Our team is working with the planning division on one sheet that explains the zoning clearance processes for these in-home family child care centers, how to obtain this, and resources as well. So this will be all incorporated into our one-stop shop online platform to help the child care community and partner with these partner organizations. And then now I'll just go into a quick kind of overview of the implementation plan annual recap. So this is kind of just a list of everything overall that our team has done this year. We have completed the physical one-stop shop. We went into contract with Cyril Creative for our virtual one-stop shop. We obtained Placer AI software for tracking analytics. We have the retail and office sector analysis are completed through retail strategies. The grocery analysis is also completed. The small business ombudsman role has been established, and the business concierge program is implemented. We went into contract with North Coast Builders Exchange, to execute contractor licensing programs. We are working on the Permit Ready program. We brought the Target Industries report forward. We hosted the broker forums with commercial real estate agents and discussing our vacant buildings and lots program. We have ongoing partnerships with Go Local and the Small Business Development Center. We established our intern program. We also established a Rise and Thrive program, and the meetings are ongoing. We held the Business Expert Express seminar and workshop. We made progress on the micro enterprise home kitchen operations. We provided input to the general plan. We established the enhanced infrastructure financing district downtown. We closed out the downtown infill housing study. The market opportunity report was completed for USL. And then some of these I already touched on. We hired our full-time arts and event specialist. All special event permitting for Courthouse Square is now in-house. We distributed our annual survey. We've now completed 2 quarterly reports, and we brought Dr. Eiler on to contract and assist with economic interpretation and analysis. Our team has done much more than this, but this is just an overview of what we have completed in terms of our implementation plan action items. And that closes out the report for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Any questions? Go for it.
How are we doing with our outdated policies, such as neon signs, for example? I know that there's been some over 2 decades that we haven't revised them, and I know it's a big lift, but how are we doing on that?
Thank you for the question, Council Member. Really what our main focus on right now is the use permit process. We saw that as really the biggest need for the community. That is actually next on the agenda for today, so you can get an overview of where we stand with that. The next phase is to then look at the other policy issues that are affecting business and how can we streamline that. Signs are definitely part of that. The noise ordinance is part of that. There are some bigger pieces to that. But we're more than happy to bring forward a schedule to the subcommittee on how we'll tackle this over the next year. It is definitely in the frontal lobe and in the thought process. So thank you for bringing it up, and we'll come back with a more detailed timeline for that.
Absolutely, and I definitely appreciate the efforts that's been done, especially with bringing the special events in-house. That I see as a great move in the best direction possible when it comes to entertainment for the city of Santa Rosa. So I definitely appreciate that.
Thank you. No questions from me, so we'll go to public comment on this item. Seeing none, we'll bring it back for final comments. Scott, you've been here for about 1.5 years now, is that right?
I have been here
Maybe closer
13 months,
yeah.
14 months, yeah.
About 14 months. And, you know, Rachel came on after that, Meredith came on after that. I guess that makes Raphael kind of the old head of the group. And, but I just want to say that when you see something like this, right, there's that old saying, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And being able to track what we're doing and how we're implementing these things, I'm really impressed with the 14-ish months of progress that this has gone through, you know, and it's huge. It's an all team effort. I know there's the 5 of you that I've pointed out right now, but you know, there's a whole team behind this, and I really, really appreciate that. I'm excited to see where this goes, and I'm really interested to see that grocery report, and I look forward to that. It's sort of been the whole chicken or the egg conversation that's happened for a decade or more. But yeah, I just want to say thank you all so much as we get towards the end of this year and how you've all done. This is really, really, really impressive work from your department. And I think it sort of sets the standard for our area, not even just the county, but North Bay in general. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Chair.
Absolutely. Moving on, we will go to department reports, 11.1.
Yes, we just concluded, Chair, the Economic Development Implementation Plan update. Our next report is going to be on the planning and land use updates, which Director Osborne just mentioned. And I am juggling, talking, and bringing up PowerPoints at the same time here. So let me pull up this screen. Hang on. All right, so for this item, we are going to hear directly from our Deputy Director of Planning, who's going to come and join us here at the staff table to talk about some of the current transitions that are occurring with regards to modifications and updates to the CUP process. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Jessica Jones for this update. Jessica, thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Good morning, everybody. Didn't realize I was going to be presenting, so you'll have to bear with me here as I go off the fly. Is there a presentation, Scott? Okay. Conditional use permit streamlining. This is a project that we have been talking about doing for quite some time. We were able to move this forward in this last year. The idea behind this really was taken from the streamlining that we did first for our design review back shortly after the 2017 wildfires. And then just recently we did it for our landmark alteration permit process. So we're bringing this forward for the conditional use permit process for multiple reasons. We were able to create a director level design review and landmark alteration permit process, which has been very successful. We wanted to bring that forward to the conditional use permit process. It helps the community and the folks that are going through the use permit process, provides a more streamlined way to go through. So for projects that, aren't necessarily allowed by right, but you need a little bit of review, but don't necessarily need to go to a public meeting, either at the zoning administrator or the planning commission. It provides that lower level, more streamlined, faster process, less expensive. It also helps with staff and our resources in getting projects through the process. So we met with members of the community through some of the workshops that the economic development team held, and we've talked with the the downtown folks, to really just try to get an understanding. We know anecdotally, I'm talking to customers at the counter, kind of what some of the issues are, but wanted to hear from more directly from the community. So we've taken some of that feedback. We are in the process of drafting that ordinance right now. Our tentative timeline for bringing something forward to council is in kind of early to mid 2026. Ideally, it'll be kind of in the springtime for you guys. We want to put out a draft to the community to get input before we move it forward to the Planning Commission and to the council. So we're hoping to get that out towards the end of this month. We realize that it's over the holidays, so we want to make sure that we have plenty of time for folks to take a look at that. The other piece of this, in addition to just creating that director-level design review and streamlining some of the uses that we look at, we're also looking at our temporary use permit process and how we can make that better and work for the needs of the community, and particularly for our downtown. We know we've got a lot of vacant spaces. How can we utilize those better if we don't have uses that are more permanent that can come in? And so we've talked about creating opportunities for pop-up retail and other kind of interim activities where the uses could come in for 12 months. And I think the way it's currently drafted is up to 3 years to allow for use of that space while the property owner is trying to figure out kind of more a long-term process. So, is there another slide?
No, that concludes all of the bullet points that I have prepared. Thank you, Jess, for coming up and sharing that update. I can just share with the subcommittee that the Economic Development Division, the way that we continue to support these efforts with regards to changes to the CUP process or the creation of entertainment zones or other instruments which are designed to create or spur economic development in the community, is not just to work directly with our peers over at planning and with Jess and her team to exchange ideas and best practices, but also to help with the coordination of discussions with the business community. And we've had several discussions with brokers and business owners, other stakeholders in the business community, whom we continue to bring to City Hall to sit at the new Economic Development sit-down lounge, the one-stop shop, to meet with our staff, our director, Jess, and her folks, as we just sort of talk through and put together the rough ideas as to what this will look like, so that when it comes to full council ultimately for review, it's gone through a level of engagement, in particular with the business community.
And if I can add briefly, just from a problem statement standpoint, when we talk to the small business community, and what you heard Dr. Eiler mention is some of the national retailers aren't impacted the same way as the small business community is, especially when we have factors that make it difficult to invest. This is all about getting people in vacant commercial spaces. One of the concerns that we've heard is the time that it takes to get into a commercial space, and very much that can be the use process, the use permit process, excuse me. So when somebody goes into a lease, they start paying for that site, they're running it through the use permit process before they're generating revenue. So really what we're trying to do is close that gap down. So when we talk about director level review, over-the-counter review, what that's really attempting to do is streamline the process, recognize why the use permit existed, is we need to make sure that that use is compatible, but also address the time associated with it, because we really can shrink it down. So that's ultimately what this exercise is trying to do, address the cost and the time for that very critical point for a new business startup. And hopefully this package creates a more aggressive incentive program in Santa Rosa to fill some of those commercial spaces. So I just wanted to add a little more detail to that.
Thank you very much. We will go to questions. Any questions? All right, no questions at this time. We'll go to public comment then. No public comment. We will bring it back to the dais for final comments.
You know, when it could have been maybe a year and a half, the 12, 13, 14 months that have gone by since we had the conversation about visiting the client where they are. And I have to give credit where credit is due. The effort that's been made from staff of the city of Santa Rosa has been exceptional. The feedback that I've received has been exceptional. And whether it's the entertainment zones conversation, whether it's streamlining the process, you know, it definitely curtails the fear of starting a business or entrepreneurship. And definitely, when you go into a lease agreement, it's about 3 months of free rent. And after that, it's time to pay, whether you're making money or not. So it's definitely appreciated by those investing into the small business inventory of the city of Santa Rosa. So it's definitely appreciated, and the effort is definitely acknowledged. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just concur with everything my colleagues said, as well as say, I've had the opportunity to interact with other municipalities during fire recovery conversations, as Director Osborne has as well, and interact with communities that those oversee. And I think that our culture here of get to yes and to be a partner instead of a roadblock or a regulator primarily, but to see how we can help businesses, how we can help individuals realize dreams is something that is outstanding. And, to my colleague's point of, meeting them where they're at is not as common as it should be in government. And I just really appreciate everything that you've all done to move this culture forward within our city. So thank you for that. With that, we will move on to item 11.3.
Thank you, Chair. For 11.3, staff would like to give an update to the subcommittee on various downtown initiatives and activation strategies which are currently underway. If you recall, for context or for those of the public who may be listening, staff has brought forward in the past several items, some of which have appeared as study sessions before this body to discuss and explore a variety of potential downtown activation strategies with the purpose and intent of assisting in the backfilling of vacant space within our downtown, but also creating more vibrancy and opportunity for synergy between events, activities, and our areas of commerce within the downtown. One of these such strategies, which has been previously discussed, is the Ross Street Pilot Program. This program was discussed as part of previous conversations, RE potential pedestrianization or street closure efforts. Out of that conversation came desire for staff to continue to vet and investigate and do due diligence around a potential closure of Ross Street. This continues to move forward. I can update to the subcommittee that the DAO, the Downtown Action Organization, working very closely with staff, has created a subcommittee comprised of businesses on Ross Street and other mentors within the DAO to work directly with staff. Rachel Beer has been appointed to liaise to this project, and they continue to have conversations to discuss from a programmatic perspective what would be necessary for the implementation of a street closure on Ross Street sometime in spring or summer of next year. The new commercial renter program also continues to move forward. Previously, staff brought to this body a discussion concerning what types of support and services to offer to small businesses to help and aid in the backfilling of vacant small shop space within the downtown. A number of different options were provided to the subcommittee, including grants, facade improvements, other types of technical assistance, et cetera. The subcommittee, along with staff, settled on the recommendation for the development of a new commercial renter program, which would teach new entrepreneurs and new businesses, in particular those who maybe have not leased commercial space before, to understand the commercial lease process, to understand how to negotiate commercial lease terms, to understand some of the basics around permitting and seeking other zoning and planning approvals in order to activate a commercial space and open in a shop space downtown. We continue to work with our partners to put together the framework for this program, and we anticipate that in first quarter of 2026, we'll go through the contracting process to secure a partner for the administration and delivery on this new service, which will be offered for the community. Staff continues to move forward the Osawa Art Project. Staff had the opportunity to tour the foundry, which is responsible for the pouring of the Asawa art panels. It was a very impressive tour. Staff left that tour feeling very confident in the abilities of the foundry and their workers. It was quite actually magnificent to see what their capabilities are. We feel very good that this particular foundry will be working with us on the panels as we work to pour these panels and bring them back to the public for public enjoyment and public viewing. Staff, the city, our division, we continue to move forward with our obligation, our being the city's obligation under the agreement, the development agreement, which is to produce the panels. And so the panels are moving forward for pouring and are planned to be, the first panel is planned to be poured here relatively soon. With that, staff continues to have conversation with the community, stakeholders, and other partners about the proper and best placement for the panels, what that placement could potentially look like. There has been some concern expressed by some community members that currently with the design of Courthouse Square and with how many times stages, temporary stages are being activated and set up in the square on a recurring basis for events, that the panels, if installed on a fountain design as originally intended, would be blocked from view a good portion of the time, at least when there are events and other activities occurring in the square. We did previously, at Council Member Alvarez's request, did some due diligence around whether or not the fountain could be relocated. The answer to that was yes, it could with great cost and expense, only because the existing utilities, sewer, water, all that connection exists as is intended for the site where the fountain is intended to go. So we continue to vet out with the community what the real priority here is. It seems based on our conversations that the highest priority is to get the art back. It's about the art. It's about the art panels, and it's about the celebration of Ruth Asawa. From there, how the art is displayed and exhibited, we seem to deviate depending on who you're talking to and which stakeholder is engaged. I can share that we did have a very fruitful conversation with the Asawa family. And the Asawa family was very supportive of the city moving in a direction which is best for the community. They're not married per se to a fountain. They said that they would like to see these panels displayed, certainly, which was the intent of Ruth Asawa, but that doing so in a way which is in harmony with the needs of the community and helps to fulfill the needs of the community is more aligned with what Ruth's desires were for her art in public spaces. Also, I am aware that the business community continues to meet and also have conversations around this. I know at the DAO and at other levels, there are conversations around the fountain stage concept as well, and I imagine that there will be more conversation and updates on this as we continue to move forward with the project. Last, as far as downtown activation strategies and initiatives are concerned, I can share an update regarding park impact fees and scope development for capital improvements in the downtown. Our team continues to work very closely with parks and our peers over in that agency, and also with the new downtown crew, which has been established for downtown maintenance, and also working with other stakeholders such as the DAO and other downtown stakeholders to understand what potential improvements might look like for certain downtown public areas which are quasi-park in nature, Jeju Way, Comstock Mall, Courthouse Square falling within that category, but also looking at potential development and expenditure of those park impact fees for 4th Street and Juilliard Park as well. We continue to have staff level, executive level leadership and stakeholder meetings at these sites. We're walking these sites in person and discussing what the various opportunities but challenges are for these sites as we continue to put together a potential scope for improvements at these locations. There's one location left to be reviewed. Our teams will be meeting to walk and discuss challenges and opportunities for Comstock Mall, after which we will be taking all of our findings from all of the discussions, scrubbing through those and coming up with final recommendations for improvements. And this will be another conversation will be coming at a future time to this committee. That concludes a basic report on downtown activation strategies. turn it back over to the chair if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Please.
Please excuse my ignorance, but I do not know where Comstock Mall is.
Comstock Mall, I think the best way to describe Comstock Mall, it's the pedestrianized alleyway, which was once a road, which is behind parking structure number, anyone know, 10, 9, behind parking structure 9, directly across the street, due north of City Hall.
Oh, okay, so, and it leads to the smoker of the barbecue place, right? Okay.
That's right.
Sounds like it needs a little art designs to say Comstock Mall. Appreciate the. I thought I knew Santa Rosa better than a taxi driver, but apparently not.
Thank you for the reminder that we need to be specific in our descriptions of places as well. Thank you.
All right, there's no questions from me. Public comment on this item? Anybody want to do public comment? Nope. So we will bring it back for final comments. Any final comments? All right. One thing that's been kind of bantied about by people that I've talked to is when, in regards to this need for stages on Courthouse Square, that there's smaller events that get deterred because of the need for a large stage or the fees for a larger event that would include, right? And they don't get that. One of the ideas that was brought up was the idea of either an amphitheater or like a gazebo with a smaller stage in one item or one area that was basically said was Juilliard Park, to try to drive more people there for smaller events that wouldn't necessitate something the size of like Rose Parade or Pride. Is that something that is on the table, that has been discussed, or could be a possibility to be explored?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And absolutely. When we look at a stage location, where we have seen it is it predominantly is in the square for those events. Looking at how the square was originally designed, the types of events that were programmed on the square have dramatically changed over the years. It was the much larger 3-day events, very few of them throughout the year, to the more frequent events that require the larger stage. But what we see with Live at Juilliard and some of the other events that occur in that area is there is a need for that use there as well. Really, one of the challenges is you do have Juilliard is more of a neighborhood park, concerns about amplified sound on a regular basis with proximity to residential structures. So depending on the type of event you're holding there, it would naturally restrict from a noise ordinance standpoint. So that's one of the challenges, but it has been discussed because there clearly has been expressing a need in the community for a stage there as well as downtown. So I think really the balance is how does it work in conjunction with the square, two distinctly different types of events that would be programmed in the area. We're seeing staged in both locations. So when we look at the eligible funding that can go into this, how do we really balance that out, and how do we incorporate really community engagement in that process to better understand where it should fall? But absolutely, it has been discussed. It is part of the analysis, and I think that very much is reflective to what the community has expressed a desire for, is the gazebo-style stage at Juilliard.
Great, thank you so much. With that, any further comments?
And you just reminded me of for those that weren't here for the conversation about the panels being set up in Courthouse Square, that was the driving point of my conversation, even at Courthouse Square, is the amount of entertainment that's being had in recent days and the need for the cost effectiveness of those promoters to be able to have the viability to throw the event in Courthouse Square. And so, you know, I hear that it would cost a lot for the infrastructure or to move those panels, but I'm wondering if and again, it would probably require a study that costs money to come up with the numbers of what estimates it would take to relocate the panels in Courthouse.
If I may, through the chair, as we continue to explore what all of the various options are for activating the downtown, and as I alluded to earlier, our team members, along with members of Parks, Public Works, parking, we're coming together and having these cross-team, interagency conversations to talk about, how can we activate these spaces. We're essentially putting together a spreadsheet, a master spreadsheet, if you will, of all of the potential upgrades, improvements, but also laying out what the costs would be, what the timelines would be from an install permitting perspective, what some of the hurdles might be. So the list of ingredients, if you will, is being put together. When that is complete, we'll be able to come up with and start to assess if we were to go with one proposed project or improvement or another, what the costs could be. And I think to your point, just understanding what alternatives are for the placement and display of the panels themselves and what the costs are for those alternatives are, that's being developed. And so it would be a discussion that would be had in the future.
And definitely flowers to the Sawa family for being so community-minded. So I definitely thank them for their understanding of community first.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you very much. And with that, we will move on to item 12, 12.1.
Thank you, Chair. This is our last update item before we get to 13.1, committee assignments. And this update is going to be a sort of more concise walkthrough of some of the various projects that currently are ongoing today. And I will cover a few of these, but what I'd like to do at the end, if it's all right with the chair, is move the art and culture initiatives and events to the end of the list so that I can turn that over to Meredith Knutson, our art and culture coordinator, to provide that up.
By all means.
All right, wonderful. Just an update. First, we'll start with USL. The city has, since our last presentation to you, by way of update, amended its letter of interest or LOI agreement with the United Soccer League. For context, just as a reminder, the city had previously entered into an LOI with the United Soccer League for the purpose of exploring potential sites and opportunities within Santa Rosa for the placement of a stadium for the purposes of bringing a champion-level men's and women's soccer league to Santa Rosa. Through those conversations, as we continue to seek opportunities for collaboration with the county and other partners, the city has determined it best to amend that LOI to allow a carve-out so that USL is afforded the opportunity to work more specifically with the county and the county fair board to share information with regards to site opportunities. That LOI amendment has been executed, and in working closely with our county partners, it's our understanding that county staff plans to bring this conversation to their Board of Supervisors at their December 16th meeting for further discussion. The Creative Corridor Project, this is a placemaking tourism-related initiative that we have shared here at the subcommittee in the past. Just wanted to share the progress to date thus far. The corridor partners continue to meet monthly on a recurring basis to discuss opportunities for the activation of that neighborhood where the Schultz Museum, Snoopy Ice Rink, and the Children's Museum is located, i.e. what we are now calling or terming the Creative Corridor. Staff is working closely with the corridor partners on the review and placement or the review and design of new signage, including signage off of the freeway and other directional signage to direct tourists and travelers in the area and also existing families to the corridor. And we'll continue to share updates with you on this project as we move forward. Our parking management friends over the parking department have asked that we just remind the business community that in January there are new parking fees which have impacts to businesses. This has been shared before publicly with council, and the parking is trying to get the word out. So they'd just like to remind everyone that these new fees and changes which occur beginning in January, information is available online at the city's website, which is srcity.org. I will leave art and culture initiatives and events for Meredith at the end. Just an update on the downtown play panels. The downtown play panels, which was a special project, came out of the city manager's office that our team implemented, is now complete. The play panels have been installed. 5 sensory freestanding interactive play panels have been installed in the treed area, which is located approximately southwest Courthouse Square. Our staff has had the opportunity to interview parents who have been sitting on benches over those by those panels while their children are playing with the panels, and the feedback seems overwhelmingly positive. So this is a great pilot for us as we move forward over the next 2 years to evaluate engagement with the panels, to give us a better understanding for the types of things that we can include in the downtown to make it more amenable and friendly and attractive for parents, families, guardians, grandparents with young children. And then finally, our Business Concierge Program update. Last meeting, we brought a 6-month update to you on the Business Concierge Program. That program does continue to move forward with success. We are continuing to finalize the new Business Concierge sign-in portal, client portal, which has been created. We've worked very closely with our IT team on that portal. We did a soft launch on that portal. We've had a handful of businesses sign up. This is a portal which will be attached to the one-stop shop, the virtual one-stop shop, when the virtual one-stop shop is finished and available for the public for their utilization. Businesses will be able to go on through the one-stop shop, create an account through the portal, and develop a profile, and then lay out through the portal the types of services, technical assistance that they're in need of, or support that they need from the economic development team. So through this soft launch, piloting it with a handful of businesses, so far it seems to be very successful. We're currently working with IT to round out just some minor software glitches. We think that we'll get through those within the next 30 days, and then the portal should align with the February launch of the one-stop shop. Our plan is when the one-stop shop launches and we move into a hard launch mode and the one-stop shop and the portal are both available and online for use, and we've ironed out all of the glitches, we'd like to invite our friends in IT here and come and do a walkthrough presentation with you and show you how the one-stop shop works and show you how the portal works, and bring perhaps a business or two who actually had an opportunity through the soft launch to pilot the portal and to share with you their experience, the usage. Through the Business Concierge Program, also wanted to share that we're working very closely with our planning, building, engineering teams on development of 2 online webinars. These webinars will be part of the video series, which will be available through the one-stop shop. The first webinar will be a webinar aimed at providing commercial property owners and landlords, in particular their tenant improvement staff, with an understanding of how to effectively and efficiently navigate Acela, our online permitting portal, so that they can more easily identify and understand timelines for their permits and status of their permits. And then the other online webinar that we're working with the planning team on creating is a Permit 101 webinar, which will be available for businesses as they're looking to navigate the permit system. A business who is opening in Santa Rosa may need more than 1 permit, may need more than 3 permits for their business, and so working on this tool to help businesses navigate that process. So that concludes just an update of some of these other various projects that we're working on, and we're going to round it out with Meredith Knutson, our Art and Culture Coordinator, who will take us home on an update where we're at with art and culture initiatives, events, and some fun things happening with film, too. Thank you, Meredith.
Yes, thank you, Scott, and good morning. I guess good afternoon now. Today, I have a brief overview of the arts and culture initiatives as well as events for the city of what we've been working on. The Art Walk officially opened on November 1st, so that's very exciting. We've received a lot of great feedback from the business community and residents. Even the City of Santa Rosa social post had 58 shares. So I think that just goes to show the importance of arts and culture and what it can really do for our community. We'll be working on an arts merchanting guide for all the businesses on how they can get involved with the arts and the Art Walk. And then the map's also available online in Spanish and English, and we're working on distributing that to the hotels, businesses, and the airport, et cetera. We had the kickoff of the Arts Roundtable in October, and we had about 20 people in attendance of different stakeholders at the Santa Rosa Arts Center. And so we put together an ad hoc committee for APPC, and we'll be bringing that now quarterly to different districts to get feedback on different initiatives specific to the area that we're hosting, marketing and feedback, and roadblocks for that community as well, so that we could start bringing those forward to APPC to put together some action items. We've had really great web traffic. It was noted in the quarterly report. As you'll see, it's grown about 200% of people going to our arts and culture page. We have been doing some advertising for the Arts Walk and Calls for Art, and so I'll be continuing to track those metrics, which will be in my impact report for the strategic plan. We have 2 open calls. The National Arts Program, that call for art is open until January 15th, and that's open to all ages and abilities here, City of Santa Rosa and employees. And that show will open in February at the Arts Finley Center. And then the Live at Juilliard application will be opening in January as well. As Scott mentioned, we've got our film initiative. I'm working with Jack Wonderly, a videographer, on a sizzle reel for locations, and that we'll be partnering with Bay Area Film Mixer to have our Santa Rosa Film Mixer February 27th here. So we're working on that initiative, and we've had a couple film permits come through, and then also a short film will be here in spring as well. So that's very exciting. As for events, we, as Rachel mentioned, we hired a full-time arts and events specialist. So this person will be coming on board in January, and we're really looking at streamlining our events process. So taking a step back, as in July, we took over the management of Courthouse Square, and a lot of things did come to sight on what needs to be focused on there. It includes our Recology contract and looking at the quality of that service and providing locks for those restrooms when they're not in service, and the cleanliness of the square, et cetera. So we're really focusing on this quality aspect of the customer service and what we're providing for these events, including an events packet for when someone first applies for an event, what that customer service interaction looks like. So I'm really excited about that. I think Courthouse Square is such an awesome location to have your event. We have over 80 events there a year. So this person will be coming on board in January. And we're also looking at our zero waste ordinance and how we've been putting that towards the events, et cetera, and in that packet. And I think that is my update for today. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Wonderful, Meredith. Thank you very much. No further updates. I'll turn it back over to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Fleming.
What's a sizzle reel?
A sizzle reel is about a 90-second reel that was going to highlight the locations of Santa Rosa to film.
Okay, cool.
Any questions, Councilmember Alvarez? No questions. No questions from me either. We'll go to public comment. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Come back for final comments.
Thank you, Chair. In regards to District 1, we've had a vast amount of investment currently that really has not only revitalized Roseland and South Park, but really changed the culture. And one of the things that I would love to see collaborate or work hand in hand is the amount of artwork investment to beautify those investments, not only for today, but for the future. You know, I'm thinking of a statue of Maria Ignacia de Lopez Carrillo at the new library in Santa Rosa. You know, something that would definitely celebrate Santa Rosa's matriarch, something that celebrates our history. And so definitely I would love to see, and not to take anything away from any of the other economic development projects that we're seeing beautify our city, but for my district, I would love to see a vast amount, a great amount of artwork that equals the money that we're investing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing from me. Thank you guys very, very much. You guys are doing a lot. Like a lot. It's awesome. I really appreciate it. So with that, we'll close that item and go to item 13.1,
Thank you, Chair. 13.1, this is a new item which creates a section for committee assignments. And whereas we don't have any committee assignment requests today, I can just explain the intent of adding this item to the agenda. As you have pointed out, the Economic Development Division, we have a lot going on. We have a very good team, and I think we all work very well together under good leadership. Very fortunate to have Gabe Osborne at the head of the ship. But it can be challenging as a small team to effectuate everything that needs to be done in order to move a project forward. So part of the intent of this item was to create opportunity for certain committees, not all, but certain boards and commissions to be able to undertake some work where it makes sense to advance the work of the committee or the work of the programs that are being reported out at these committees. This could be an assignment which comes as a recommendation from the chair. It could be an assignment which comes forward as a recommendation from one of the subcommittee members themselves, or it could be a request from staff. Generally, in terms of what do I mean by assignments, more often than not, this will be some sort of level of engagement, getting the word out, talking with community members, talking with stakeholders, just listening, getting ideas, finding out how stakeholders feel about projects, getting those insights, and in turn sharing them with staff. We do our best and we do what we can to engage with the community, but there's a fine balance between being out in the community engaging and then being back in our offices doing the design and the implementation work. So we're moving forward. We're hoping that this can be somewhat of a flexible item where we can just discuss what are the needs of these programs in terms of stakeholder engagement, and where it makes sense and it's feasible, because we understand that you have very busy schedules as well, can we maximize on or capitalize some of the leverage that you have in your social circles as you're out in the community having conversations. So with that, there are no requests from staff for committee assignments today.
All right, any questions? All right, no questions from me. Public comment? No public comment. We'll bring it back. Final comments?
I would love, and I'm sure I can speak for everyone, to be included in those assignments, especially like when you guys were approaching business owners. I would love to have been a fly on the wall in those conversations.
Yeah, I'll just concur that I think there's no problem with me leaving this on the agenda for future agendas, and as needed, we'll address it. So I appreciate that. With that, we will move on to item 14, future agenda items. Do you have any future agenda items to report out on?
The only future agenda item, which I alluded to earlier, is that we will bring a presentation and a walkthrough, a demonstration of the Business Concierge portal and one-stop shop once we launch.
All right, and then we'll bring it back to the dais. Anything you want to add for future agenda items? Is there anything you could possibly think of for future agenda items?
Yeah, I think that it would be helpful to have some thoughts from staff about what we're going to do with the reports from Dr. Eiler, and just sort of some translational work there. Not to give you guys more to do, but it could just be a brief, bullet in addition to what the other stuff is.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Alvarez?
Thank you, sir. I won't call it proliferation, but definitely an area of concern that's been brought up in my district. And with Rafa, I definitely need to sit with you, sir. Are the street vendors, the night vendors, I know that it's becoming something that is in my ear often, whether it's the vendors in our parks. And it's not so much the economic development at that level that I'm looking at, because I definitely appreciate that of the entrepreneurship. It's the environmental impact that I'm hearing about. That is the area of concern for myself, as well as many other concerns of the community, specifically the dumping of grease in our waterways. So I definitely want to bring that to the issue. So here is an issue where I'm conflicted about the ability for someone to provide for the family, opposed to someone's choices to hurt future residents of Santa Rosans. So I definitely want to put that on the map for all.
Thank you, Councilmember. So would it be accurate to say you're looking for a pathway to legitimacy for these vendors?
Indeed, to definitely support those that are an asset to the economy of Santa Rosa opposed to those that are detriment to the environmental health of our city.
All right, thanks. I think it's safe to say that, you know, the old adage of one bad apple spoils the bunch, and we want to avoid that by all means. So thank you for that. If there's nothing else, I don't have anything, we will close that item, and then we will go to 15, adjournment, and we will adjourn at 10:29. Thank you all.